They always said that loyalty was a virtue, but no one ever mentioned what it turns into when it rots. For 5 years, I gave Carrington and Holt everything: my time, my voice, my weekends, my sanity. I built their reports, fixed their systems, covered their mistakes. And when they offered me my next opportunity, I thought it would be a corner office. Instead, it was a pink slip and an invitation to train the man who'd replace me. His name was Michael Reeves. Perfect résumé. Perfect smile. He shook my hand like I was a bridge he'd just crossed and didn't plan to look back at. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I showed up every day, trained him, smiled, signed the papers. Then, when they thought I was gone, I opened a blank document and started writing again. Not a resignation letter. Not a complaint. A report. One that would end careers instead of building them. I'd always believed that hard work protected you. That if you played by the rules, kept your head down, the world would be fair. Turns out I was confusing fairness with fear. The morning it happened was unremarkable. Fluorescent lights, burnt coffee, the quiet hum of ambition in a glass office. Then my name appeared in a meeting invite. Transition review, 9 a.m. Inside the conference room sat Mr. Holt, one of the founding partners, and beside him, Michael. The same man I'd been mentoring for 3 weeks. "Evelyn," Holt said, voice polished and patient, "we've decided to make some organizational changes. Michael will be taking over your position." For a second, my brain refused to translate the words. I stared at the stack of reports in front of me, mine, all mine, and wondered if they'd even read them. "I trained him," I said. "It came out steadier than I expected." "I know," Holt replied, smiling like he was doing me a favor. "You've been an incredible help during this transition." "Transition," I repeated. "That's what you're calling it?" He nodded. "We'll need you to assist for another 2 weeks. Then HR will handle your exit. 2 weeks to train my replacement." 5 years reduced to a footnote in someone else's promotion speech. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I just said, "Of course," and left the room. But somewhere deep inside, something ancient and cold woke up and whispered, they made a mistake. In the days that followed, I performed perfection. Arrived early, stayed late, answered every question Michael asked, smiled when people avoided eye contact, pretending not to know. I was the ghost of an employee they'd already buried. But here's the thing about ghosts. We remember everything. I'd built Carrington and Holt's data systems from the ground up, their servers, audit logs, client trackers. Every financial report passed through lines of code I'd written. They thought I was replaceable. They just didn't realize the company ran on my fingerprints. At night, when the office was empty, I opened old archives, files no one else even knew existed. I wasn't looking for revenge yet. I was looking for meaning. Instead, I found something better. Patterns. Transactions that didn't add up. Payments to vendors that didn't exist. Double entries marked consulting fees. The deeper I dug, the more it reeked. And suddenly, the same skill that built their empire was about to become the weapon that ended it. I created a folder on my personal drive. Its name was simple, Report So 1, Internal Misconduct, but privately, I called it something else. The report they'll never forget. It's funny how invisible you become once you're marked for exit. People smile, but their eyes slide past you like you're already gone. That invisibility, it was freedom. While they joked and planned happy hours, I watched. Who avoided eye contact when Holt entered the room? Who always forwarded emails without reading? Who knew something was wrong and chose to look away? By day, I was obedient. By night, I was a historian. I cataloged everything: invoices, meeting minutes, system logs. Each time I uncovered a lie, I documented it with the same precision they'd praised me for. One night, while finalizing what was supposed to be my last quarterly report, I added a new line at the top. To whom it may concern. The following report outlines systemic financial misconduct and deliberate concealment within Carrington and Holt Consulting. It wasn't just data anymore. It was testimony. The office was dark except for my monitor's glow. I stared at my reflection in the glass, tired, expressionless. That's when it hit me. I wasn't scared. I stopped being scared the moment they underestimated me. The real ghosts in modern offices don't haunt hallways, they haunt spreadsheets. I started reconstructing the company's financial history using backup archives. 5 years of numbers, dates, signatures. It was like unearthing fossils of greed. There were entire projects that didn't exist outside the balance sheets. Payments routed to shell accounts under Holt's brother-in-law's name. Bonuses issued twice, then quietly deleted. Millions hidden in plain sight. I wasn't surprised when I found Michael's name in the access logs. He had been editing entries and erasing, rewriting, covering Holt's tracks. That night, I stayed in the office until 3 a.m. The city outside was silent, but my heart wasn't. I retrieved the original records from an encrypted server, a failsafe I'd built years ago, just in case. When I saw the files restored, everything made sense. Michael wasn't replacing me because he was better. He was replacing me because he was safe. He'd keep their secrets. I never would, I laughed, quietly to myself. Not from joy. From clarity. By sunrise, I had formatted a 127-page report, timestamped and verified. I encrypted it with a passphrase that felt like closure. Loyalty is a currency that doesn't age well. Then I printed one copy and sealed it in an envelope marked Massachusetts Financial Crimes Division. My final day was overcast, Boston skies dull and cold. The office looked smaller, like it knew what was coming. Holt called me in for a farewell chat. He was smiling, relaxed, like a man who'd already written the ending. "Evelyn," he said, "I want to thank you for handling this so gracefully. You've set an example for professionalism." I wanted to ask if professionalism still meant obedience. Instead, I smiled. "Thank you, sir. I've learned a lot here." He handed me a thick envelope, my severance papers. "You'll go far," he said. "You always finish what you start." "Always," I replied. I walked out with my ID badge still clipped to my blazer. At the elevator, I paused and looked back one last time, at the desks, the glass, the people who never saw me. Then I dropped the badge in the trash. That afternoon, I mailed the envelope. No return address, no hesitation. Just one quiet, calculated motion, like the closing of a file. 3 weeks passed before I heard the first echo. I'd started freelancing from my apartment, taking small analytics jobs, anonymous work for anonymous clients. It was quiet, almost too quiet. I thought maybe the world had moved on. Then the headlines came. Carrington and Holt under federal. Investigation for financial misconduct. My inbox flooded, colleagues forwarding the link with nervous emojis. Old contacts writing, "Can you believe this?" The article didn't name me, but I didn't need it to. I could feel my fingerprints in every line of that report. By noon, the firm's website was offline. By 5, Holt's LinkedIn vanished. By nightfall, every phone in the company must have been ringing with lawyers on the other end. And mine? Silent. At 10:32 p.m., I got a text from an unknown number. "You think this makes you clean?" No signature. But I knew the rhythm of that resentment. "Michael," I didn't respond. I just stared out the window, the snow falling over Boston like a burial. They'd wanted me silent. They'd taught me silence. Now they could live in it. It was the 4th night after the article broke when someone knocked on my door. Michael stood there, drenched, eyes frantic. He looked nothing like the golden boy they'd chosen over me. "Can I come in?" he asked. "No," he pushed anyway, desperate. "They're blaming me, Evelyn. Holt's gone, he's disappeared. I'm the scapegoat." "Maybe you should have thought about that before erasing files," I said. He flinched. "You don't understand what you've done." "Oh, I do," I said quietly. "I just stopped doing your cleanup." For a second, his expression cracked. He wasn't angry, and he was terrified. Then his voice dropped. "This isn't over. You opened a door you can't close." I stepped forward close enough to smell the rain and fear on him. "Then you should have locked it better." He stared at me as if seeing me for the first time, not as the assistant, not as the silent worker, but as the person who'd finally learned what power feels like. Then he left. I didn't sleep that night. I just listened to the storm outside, wondering how far his warning reached. The agents came a week later, 2 men in gray suits, polite, rehearsed. "Ms. Cross, we're conducting a follow-up on the Carrington case. May we come in?" They asked questions that seemed harmless, about file access, data transfers, people I'd never met. Then one name stuck out, Horizon Group. "I've never worked with them," I said. One of the agents smiled faintly. "Not directly. But they owned Carrington and Holt through a shell network." The pieces clicked. Holt was never the top of the ladder. He was a rung, and I had just rattled the whole structure. That night, I opened my laptop and stared at the old folders. For the first time, the idea of finishing what I started felt dangerous. Not just for them, but for me. I could have deleted everything. Instead, I made a copy. The folder name was simple: Report 02, the network. This time, I didn't address it to the authorities. This time, it was for the world. It started as a rumor online, a whistleblower leak. Within hours, it had a name. The Boston Report, 127 pages of evidence, uploaded anonymously to a public archive. It spread like wildfire. Headlines exploded. Horizon executives linked to offshore accounts. Massive cover-up exposed. Anonymous source shakes corporate America. In 48 hours, the CEO resigned. 3 partners were indicted. 2 vanished overseas, and Michael? His face appeared on TV, pale and sweating under studio lights. He said, "I had no knowledge of the fraud." He said, "We trusted the wrong people." He said, "I don't even know who Evelyn Cross is." And yet, when the camera caught his eyes, he looked like a man who saw ghosts. I didn't feel triumph. Watching it unfold was like watching a building you helped construct catch fire. You don't cheer, you just watch it burn. Spring came early that year. Boston's skyline was clean again, like nothing had happened. I rented a small office above a cafe, started consulting for small startups. Simple work, no politics, no partners with golden cufflinks. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the window, calm, focused, someone I almost recognized. Then, one morning, I found an envelope on my doorstep. No stamp, no sender, inside a single sheet of paper, a resignation letter signed by Edward Holt, dated 2 days before the federal raid. At the bottom, written in blue ink. "You were always the only one who saw everything clearly. I underestimated what silence can become." I folded the letter, held it over a candle flame until it turned to ash. The smoke rose slowly, graceful, like forgiveness pretending to be real. It didn't smell like revenge anymore. It smelled like closure. That night, I opened a new document. Its title, "The Report I'll Actually Submit." And for the first time in 5 years, it wasn't about them. It was about me. The world moved on, as it always does. New scandals replaced old ones. The headlines that once defined me faded into archives, buried under fresh outrage. Carrington and Holt was gone. Horizon had dissolved. And I, the woman who'd burned them to the ground, had become a whisper. Some days, I wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing. If the sleepless nights and encrypted drives were just an elaborate nightmare. Then I'd catch my reflection in a shop window, steady eyes, careful posture, and realize I was still living in aftermath. I walked past the old Carrington building once. The glass was tinted now, dust dulling the edges. And in that reflection, I saw myself, younger, hopeful, still believing that good work meant good things. I wanted to tell her, they were never your family. But she wouldn't have listened. She was still too busy proving her worth to men who'd already decided it. It was late, close to midnight, when someone knocked on my door again. For a second, I froze, and that same old instinct of dread. But when I opened it, it wasn't Michael. It was a woman, Ms. Cross. "Yes? My name's Nadia Bell. I'm a journalist." "You don't know me, but..." "I think you were the whistleblower." I said nothing. Silence was safer now, she continued. "I'm not here to expose you. I just need to understand what happened. Horizon wasn't the end, was it?" Her face was sharp, the kind that never accepted half-truths. I could have denied everything. But there was something in her voice. Fatigue, maybe. "Familiar fatigue, why do you care?" I asked. She hesitated. "My father worked for them. He wasn't guilty, just collateral damage. He died before they cleared his name." That word, collateral, felt like a blade. I invited her in. We sat in silence, tea steaming between us. When she left, she said softly, "If you ever decide to tell your side, the world would listen." I smiled faintly. The world listens to women like me only once, and then it forgets. She didn't argue. She just nodded and disappeared into the rain. I took a teaching job that spring, Data Ethics 101, at a community college across the river. It was the first time in years I'd worked in a room with light that wasn't fluorescent. My students were idealists. They believed that truth was noble, that numbers never lied. I didn't tell them that numbers lie all the time. You just have to teach them how. But sometimes, as I graded papers in the quiet evenings, I'd catch myself tracing patterns again, looking for discrepancies, for ghosts. And then one afternoon, a note slipped under my door. They're rebuilding under a new name. Horizon may be gone, but the people aren't. No signature. I stared at the paper for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. But another part, the old part, the part that once stayed up at 3 a.m. rewriting history, stirred awake. Could I do it again? Would I? I folded the note, placed it in my desk drawer, and locked it. Not because I was afraid of them, but because I was afraid of myself. Weeks passed before Nadia called again. I found something, she said. Shell firms. Same money trail. Different names. It's all starting over, she paused. Help me finish what you started. I looked out my window. Boston in twilight, headlights smearing across wet asphalt. I could feel the old pulse of adrenaline. The hunger for order, for justice disguised as logic. But I remembered what that hunger had cost me. 5 years. My peace. My anonymity. Revenge is addictive because it makes you feel clean. Until you realize it's just another kind of dirt. No, I said finally. I can't. Why not? Because every time I fix the system learns how to hide better. Maybe the point isn't to erase corruption, it's to stop feeding it. She was silent. Then she said, maybe that's the report you should write next. When the call ended, I opened a blank document. For a long time, I just stared at the cursor blinking, patient, waiting. Then I typed the first sentence. This is not a confession. It's a record of what silence can do to a soul. A year later, I published a book under a pseudonym, The Cost of Obedience. It wasn't about names or companies. It was about the women who built empires that forgot their faces. About the invisible architects of success, the ones who carried it quietly until their backs broke. It didn't make headlines. But it found its way into small corners, libraries, classrooms, inboxes. Sometimes I got letters. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for writing what I couldn't say. I never replied. But I kept every one of them. On the final page of the book, I wrote the only line that ever mattered. I didn't raise my voice. I just wrote a new report, one that ended careers and finally began my own. I closed the laptop and let the silence fill the room. But this time it wasn't heavy. It was freedom.